In the second video investigating Maine's Medicaid system, a man walks into a Medicaid office in Portland and identifies himself as Sean. Sean says he shares a checking account with $250,000 in it with his parents, whose current business is run under the table. The employee counsels Sean one way to get around his assets.
That would be one way to get around it. So that would be one way to get around it.
And eventually advises him to falsely claim he intends to pay his parents back. The Mainecare employee also tells Sean, quote, they don't care, unquote, where the parents are getting their money from.
Yeah, we don't care.
Okay.
And we don't search that.
The first 4 minutes are highlights, then we'll show the full 40-minute visit.
Right. So the only thing that I have, it's shared with them though, is a checking account.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an issue?
No,
okay.
It's not an issue.
So even though my name is on the account, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And there's $250,000 in there, it doesn't matter. Okay.
It's a joint account and your name is on it, or
yeah.
are you just able to sign the checks or you power of attorney for it?
Well, I have a card, and I just go to the debit machine and I can pull out whatever I need, whatever I want.
Okay, and your name is on it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an asset issue. I think it is going to be an asset issue.
Is there any way around that? Should I take my name off the account and maybe have them pump money into my own account as needed?
That would be one way
to
get around it. So that would be one way to get around it. That would be one way to get around it. So that would be one way to get around it.
As far as the income change that you're talking about, that's just declared income?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So if I'm doing like babysitting or something, I wouldn't declare that.
Sure.
So so when I say babysitting, I'm not actually talking about babysitting.
Right.
It's just helping them out and helping them help my siblings out as well.
Right.
And it's all under the table because of what they're doing, the business that they're running. So they wouldn't necessarily want me to declare anything because there'd be issues. If I don't declare any of that and I change my bank account, take my name off the bank account as you suggested, then the government's not to know. I mean,
correct. We wouldn't know. Nobody knows. Yeah. And it's not for us to know, and it's not for us to go out and search either. And if you said to me, I have no income, I have no assets, and I have no expenses whatsoever.
By assets, you're not talking about the Corvette or any of that other stuff that they've given me. Okay.
Correct. If you said, I have no income, I have no assets, and I have no expenses, then you would qualify for food stamps as you leave the door. And I would open a food stamp account for you, and you would qualify for food stamps.
Now, is the state of Maine concerned about where they're getting their money from, or does it matter? Can I just say that's my family? They're not worried about their paperwork.
This case is all about you.
Okay.
The answer is no. The answer is we don't care, and we're not going to look it up, and we're not going to go after it. We don't. How do I want to say this? Yeah, we don't care.
Okay.
And we don't search that.
Good.
Yeah, we don't care.
Okay.
And we don't search that.
They're very ever since their business went under, it's all strictly under the table, the work they do now. So as long as I say I intend to pay them back, then I'm all set. Even though I have no intention of paying them back, and they wouldn't want any money back anyway. Okay.
And mom and dad may be required to simply send this note saying, we give Sean $5,000 per month with an intent that he will repay us someday.
Cause it's 3, 2, 1, now it's time to attack. Move this, break this, shake this, take this, get on the floor, don't procrastinate this. Move it, get out your seat and get into it.
Thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome. So my name is Deb. How may I help you today? And it looks like you want to apply for Mainecare, or you have some questions about
Yeah,
Mainecare?
I have some questions. I just want to make sure that, like, I'm qualified and all of that.
Sure.
I'm not from around here, so I don't know how things work.
Okay. So when you say that you're not from around here, is it because you're not a U.S. citizen?
I'm not a citizen yet. I'm here legally.
Okay.
That's not a problem, is it?
Not necessarily. When you say that you're here illegally, do you have a green card?
No, I'm here legally. Yeah, I have a visa.
You have a
Yeah.
you're on a visa.
Yeah.
So are you a student?
No,
No. Okay, but you don't have a green card.
I have a green card. Yeah.
You do have a green
Yeah.
card. Oh, okay.
I don't have a social security number though.
That's fine.
I have
You
an
don't need
alien. So I'm going through the application. I just have some questions about filling out some of this stuff and what constitutes a household.
Sure.
'Cause, I came over here with my family, but they're down in Massachusetts and they're working out of Gloucester.
Okay.
And I'm just here in Portland now on my own.
Okay.
So I guess one of my questions is, what constitutes a household? Because they're paying for my place
Okay.
here, because I'm not working.
Okay.
But I mean, I help them out. But, so that's the first thing.
So to talk about that, so let me ask you this: how old are you, Sean?
I'm 35.
Okay. So it can be a household of one, and within that household, it's entirely possible to have no expenses. So, in other words, if mom and dad or other family members live in Massachusetts, you live here and they're paying your expenses, so that technically you have no expenses.
Right.
So it might be the type of thing where you apply on your own as an individual of one, and then when we go to list things like income, assets, and expenses, you may have income on your own, you may not. You may have assets on your own, or you may not. If we don't even have to list expenses unless you're applying for food stamps as well. If you're applying just for medical services, we really don't list expenses. So we really don't have to list expenses at all if you're just looking for Mainecare.
Right.
So that's number one. The other thing to sort of think about is, let's just say, for example, that your family lives in another state, you live here in Maine, and you have several roommates. You can, if you're all unrelated, you can still be a household of one within that household. You could still have no expenses, and you may or may not have income and assets.
Okay. Well, it's just me in the house now.
Okay.
That's big enough for more, but it'll just be me.
It's just for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my youngest sisters are at Phillips Exeter Academy in New Hampshire.
Yep.
And the parents are paying for them to go there too. And then I have two other sisters that would be going to college soon. They're college age, and I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So now, when you're talking about expenses, is that just like household bills and electricity and stuff?
It is. And again, we only care about expenses if you plan to apply for food stamps.
Okay.
If you don't plan to apply for food stamps, then we don't look at expenses at all.
So, okay,
now,
right.
The only exception to that is if you are 60 or older, which I know you're not.
No.
Or if you're disabled as defined by Social Security Administration, which I don't think you are because you don't have a Social Security number.
Right.
But if you're disabled and you're receiving a Social Security disability check, you can list your medical expenses. But if you are sort of able-bodied, healthy, and you're not on disability, then you really don't even have to list expenses.
So here where it asks all about the checking accounts and all of that, I don't have to worry about that as long as, because it says food stamps. Is that just for food stamps, or do you need to know about that for Mainecare? So?
Mainecare wants asset listings, and just so that you know, as a single individual, an individual of one, your assets can't exceed $8,000. If they exceed $8,000,
That's my personal assets.
personal
Okay.
assets, and that's excluding vehicles. So if you owned a car,
Mhm.
and if you owned the car outright, or if you were still paying for it, if you had a loan, a car loan, and you were still paying for it, vehicles are excluded. Property, residential property is excluded because everybody needs a home to live in. And personal property is excluded, so things like flat screen TVs and stereo systems and things like that, that's all excluded. What we're really talking about when it comes to this $8,000 asset limit is things like liquid savings and checking, life insurance policies that have a value to them, not term life insurance, but whole life insurance that have a value. Extra property, so for example, if you owned a home and then you owned a summer camp, that second piece of property would definitely be listed as an
Okay.
asset.
Well, I don't own anything over here.
But those are just some of the
Yeah. The car I drive, the parents provide.
Yeah, it's excluded anyway.
Right. So the only thing that I have, it's shared with them though, is a checking account.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an issue?
No,
Okay.
it's not an issue.
So even though my name is on the account, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And there's $250,000 in there, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Let me go back and say $250,000. So, okay, let's just say, for instance, you had a checking account with $250,000 in it.
It's their money. It's their money, though.
Right.
They just let me tap into it.
That would be considered a liquid asset, and here's the thing about that is it could be, we can list it as joint, and so it could have Sean, and it could have mom and dad's name on it. And if they owned, say, 50% of the money, that's one thing. If they owned 90% of the money, or if they owned...
Well, how do you determine what's on? Because I don't put anything into it. I work for them on the side. I help the family out because they're paying for my sisters to go to school, and then the college expenses in the coming years will be expensive for them, and I'm the least expensive of all of them, and I'm the most known. So. It's a joint account. It's a joint account, and your name is on it, or are you just able to sign the checks? Are you power of attorney for it? Well, I have a card, and I just go to the debit machine, and I can pull out whatever I need, whatever I want.
Okay, and your name is on it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an asset issue. I think it is going to be an asset issue.
Is there any way around that? Should I take my name off the account and maybe have them pump money into my own account as needed?
That would be one way to
Okay.
get around it. So that would be one way to get around it. But let's get it back up and let's talk about Mainecare sort of just to begin with, so that you sort of know what you'd be in for if you came in to apply today. And it looks like you have an application, and that we are going to do an application for it, but let's just sort of talk about broadly what we might expect. So if anybody were to come in to apply for Mainecare today, what we try our best to do is we try our best to fit them into categories, and then we cover the categories. So the categories for Mainecare are aged, have to be 65 or older in order to qualify. Disabled as defined by Social Security, so that is somebody who's receiving an SSI check or an SSDI check every month from Social Security.
Okay.
Infants up to the age of 1, children ages 1 through 18, the parents of those children as long as they're income eligible and live in the same household. Young adults, 19 and 20, that are still dependents on mom and dad. And then the last category is pregnant women. So based on everything that I've said, it doesn't feel to me that you would fit in any of those categories.
Okay. Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Being 35, I'm definitely not over 65. I don't have any children that I know of.
Yeah.
And I'm not disabled.
So you're not going to fit in any category.
Okay.
So what would happen is, as long as you're income eligible and your income and your assets don't sort of put you out of the realm of eligibility for Mainecare, what would end up happening is you'd be put in a category all in of itself, and that category is called the non-categorical category. So no category, it's non-categorical. So what ends up happening is you're on that category, and when the state has funding, they'll notify the people who have been on that waiting list for the longest period of time, and they'll say, come in and do a review. If you're still income eligible, we now have the funding to cover you. So most recently, we've seen people on the waiting list for maybe 8 to 10 months. And I can't guarantee that you'll be on the waiting list for 8 to 10 months. It may be more, it may be less. But that's what we've seen most recently, is a waiting list of about 8 to 10 months. And then, again, like within 8 to 10 months, as long as the state has the funding, they'll notify you. You come in and do a review, and as long as you're still income eligible, they'll cover you.
And now, is there at any point that will go away? I mean, if the state runs out of money or something like that?
Once the state notifies you and says, we have the funding available to cover you, you would continue to be covered until, number one, your circumstances change and you're no longer income eligible to be covered by the health insurance. That's number one. Or number two, if you were to miss a review and just say not renew your review with us, then the Mainecare coverage would end the following month.
What's the review? Just another application?
It is. And what would happen is, so just to sort of tell you what the process is, once you've been on that waiting list and the state notifies you and says, we have funding available and we'll cover you as long as you're income eligible, come in and tell us. We'll cover you, but there's an annual review that needs to be done. So on an annual basis, we'll send you a review that looks a lot like that application. You basically just document your circumstance, send it back to us, and as long as you're still income eligible, or how do I want to say eligible in terms of the legislation, the current legislation, we'll continue to cover you. If you miss the annual review, you come off that. Your Mainecare would close, and it would simply close automatically.
Okay.
And what would happen is, if you came in and said, gee, last month I had a review, I missed it, I wasn't home, or I didn't get the mail, or I moved and I didn't notify you, then what would happen is your name would go back on the waiting list, so we don't reopen it for you. Once you've lost out, your name goes back on the waiting list, and then, the whole process sort of starts again.
And as far as the income change that you're talking about, that's just declared income?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So if I'm doing like babysitting or something, I wouldn't declare that.
Well, it depends. Income is income, and earned income and unearned income are both required to be declared. Now, I think what I want to do is just sort of clarify what I think they're referring to, because you're sort of saying declared income. When it comes to the Internal Revenue Service, I know that the Internal Revenue Service requires or sort of suggests that if folks make X amount of dollars or less, and I don't know what the cap is, but I've been told that it's about $15,000. If you make an annual income of about $15,000 or less, you don't have to file a tax return.
Okay.
I believe that's correct, but you'd have to check with the Internal Revenue Service to verify what the dollar figure actually is. So,
so if it's income on the side, like I have to declare that.
Yeah.
If I'm babysitting for well, I don't know how many hours that comes up to be for $15,001.
Right. So we know that there's a certain guideline that the Internal Revenue Service follows, but I think that the important thing to know is that that's not the same guideline as the Department of Health and Human Services. If you are homeless, and if you collect bottles and bring bottles to the redemption center, if you collect $30 or more worth of bottles per week, that's considered regular self-employment income. And, you know, if you do that 52 weeks a year, let's just do the math on that, that's no more than just a few $100s.
Yeah, geez.
A few $1,000 actually. So if you make $30 a week times 52 weeks a year, that's $1,560 per year. That's still the income that the Department of Health and Human Services is interested in you reporting. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't qualify for benefits, and it doesn't mean that you wouldn't qualify for either food stamps or Mainecare. But it's considered self-employment, and
what if these homeless guys don't report that? I mean, who's going to know if they go? Do they take their names down at the redemption centers?
You're asking some really good questions, and at this point in time, I don't believe the Department of Health and Human Services is contacting redemption centers and saying, tell me who's bringing bottles in and who's not bringing bottles in. It's, when it comes to self-employment, there's a certain amount of sort of good faith and trust that is sort of shared by the Department of Health and Human Services to employees, because, I mean, we could talk about the homeless and bottle redemption, but there are folks who put a fishing boat in the water every day and go out and pull lobster traps.
That's what we used to do, actually.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, but I don't know how well you know Gloucester, but it's a big fishing city, and the folks have 2 fishing vessels, and they're diesels. I operate one of them from time to time just to help them out, and they come up here to Portland. It's the fishing has gone down terrible in all of the Bay area. I don't know if it's global warming or what it is, but the catch has been gone down. So they found other sources of income, kind of doing imports with these vessels. So it's interesting. That's my background back home, fishing. But the economy is terrible back in Ireland.
Sure.
So I've got 4 sisters over here trying to make an honest life and live better than we had it.
Sure.
So so when I say babysitting, I'm not actually talking about babysitting.
Right.
It's just helping them out and helping them help my siblings out as well.
Right.
And it's all under the table because of what they're doing, the business that they're running. So they wouldn't necessarily want me to declare anything because there'd be issues.
And there are many people in the state of Maine and all over the U.S. and, for that matter, all over the world that have made their living, sort of self-supporting themselves, and continue to do that in one way or another. On the downside of that, and I'll just share with you another point of view, because I see it here at the Department of Health and Human Services nearly every day. And you're a young man, you're 35 years old, and the downside of that is to reach your elder years, like to be 60 or 65, and to think that you may wish to retire, or to even be 70 and to think that you may wish to retire. And if you've never paid in income taxes, if you've always been self-sufficient, whether it's on the water, whether it's babysitting, whether it's bottle collecting, whether it is as an artist, I mean, because there are many ways to make an income and to make and to to sort of earn a living, and if taxes aren't paid in to the Internal Revenue Service, you certainly could reach your elder years and then you have no paid quarters paid into Social Security. Now at this point, you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have a Social Security number, you're not facing that.
Right.
But if you stayed here in the United States, you certainly could face that. You certainly could be a legal permanent resident with a green card.
Oh, I will be.
Qualify for Social Security. And not even to say that Social Security is going to be there.
Yeah, no, that's the other problem, because it's a big problem back in the EU and France and Greece and all of these countries that have these social programs like that are upside down.
Right.
And that's why we moved over here.
Yeah. So it's not to say that it would be there when you reach your senior years, but just to acknowledge the fact that I think that from certainly when I was in my 20s, I didn't necessarily think about what I was paying in for quarters, and I wasn't really sort of imagining what retirement would look like. But, from my perspective, I'm 54 now, and I think about it more and more often because I'm sort of 10 years away from that opportunity. And I just think it's important to sort of know that if the choice that you make is all the under the table and not reporting on sort of world, which is your prerogative. There comes a time when it could be more and more difficult to live off of the chunk of savings that you've been able to amass and put away, and you don't have. I think the government services are going to be not there for you, or it would be a struggle for you to get those services.
Again,
it's a church.
Right. Well, if I don't declare any of that and I change my bank account, take my name off the bank account as you suggested, then the government's not to know. I mean,
correct. We wouldn't know. Nobody knows. Yeah, and it's not for us to know, and it's not for us to go out and search either. So I will say this. If as an individual you came in today, and if you said, I'm from Ireland or I'm from Massachusetts, I have relocated to the state of Maine, and I would like to apply for both food stamps and Mainecare, what I would do is I would take that application. We've already talked about Mainecare, and so you know that at the end of it, more than likely you would be put on a non-categorical wait list.
Right.
But if I were to take your application for food stamps as well, and if you said to me, I have no income, I have no assets, and I have no expenses.
By assets, you're not talking about the Corvette or any of that other stuff that they've given me. Okay.
Correct. If you said, I have no income, I have no assets, and I have no expenses, then you would qualify for food stamps as you leave the door. And I would open a food stamp account for you, and you would qualify for food stamps. And you would qualify for food stamps as long as you're still income eligible. And so to sort of back up, when it comes to food stamps alone, your income cannot exceed $1,670 per month, and that's gross income.
And that's declared, right?
Correct.
Declared.
Declared
Okay.
Got it. Income. Whether it's self-employment, collecting bottles and taking them to the redemption center, or whether it's working for the U.S. government as a Secret Service agent or whatever.
I don't think they'd take me based on my immigration status, but
so that's the income for food stamps. And then when it comes to Mainecare, and again, all of the categories are sort of listed here and they're listed across here. But if you fit in that non-categorical wait list status, which I think is where you would land,
right.
A single individual cannot make more than $903 gross income per month.
Oh, that's
again,
a month.
It's declared.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that's
it's not the
great
same.
thought.
It's not the same. And the
Okay.
reason why it's not the same is Mainecare is a state-run program, state-run benefit program. Food stamps is run by the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a federal program, and it's federal money that comes into the state of Maine. When somebody signs up for food stamps, it's federal
I
money
see.
that comes in.
So is Mainecare affiliated with Medicaid? Is that something, that's a federal program, right?
Correct. Mainecare is a version of Medicaid. So, there's Medicare, and there's Medicaid. So that's how this spells Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is what an individual would receive if they were receiving Social Security disability benefits.
Okay.
And what that refers to is I was an able-bodied individual. I was working. I was a member of society that may or may not have been on any one of these programs, but through either a work-related injury or a non-work-related injury, I've become incapacitated. I can no longer work, or for right now I can't work, and so I am receiving a Social Security disability check, and my medical coverage is being covered by the federal government. That's what Medicare is, Medicare. Now Medicaid is a different thing. What Medicaid refers to is I am not working. I have never worked because I was either born severely disabled or incapacitated. I have never put in any work orders. I never will work. And so I have to have the government help me pay my medical benefits because I'm simply unable to make it on my own, and I'm never going to make it on my own. And so Medicaid is actually like a benefit that's a right, more or less. This is an earned benefit, and this is a benefit that's kind of a right.
Okay. And you don't apply for those through HHS here in Maine, the state of Maine, or is is Mainecare a subsidiary of Medicare? Is that how it works?
Mainecare is a subsidiary of Mainecare.
Of Medicare?
Of Medicare.
Oh, okay.
Medicare.
All right.
Because Medicaid comes directly from Social
That's
Security.
straight from the Fed. All right.
Medicare is a subsidiary, or no, I want to say backwards. Mainecare is a subsidiary of Medicare.
Okay.
You can apply for Social Security disability, and that's just a monthly check. I'm currently disabled. I have no source of income, and Social Security is sending me money so that I can help pay my bills.
Well, I'm not disabled yet.
So
I've been roughed up a couple of times. Nothing serious.
So Social Security disability, the Social Security Administration is where you apply for the Social Security disability check. But the Medicare piece of it, you apply here.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm in the right place.
Yes.
And that I got the right forms from the net.
That looks like you do.
Yeah. I think that pretty much answers all of my questions. My only concern right now is I want to take my name off of their account, so there's no paper trail for that, and set up something else. Maybe get my own account and make sure that the money that comes in is less. I mean, that wouldn't be income, would it? If they put money into my account, as long as it's under 903 a month. I mean, because that's the only place that anyone would ever see any transactions at all.
Right.
I mean, everything else they can do in cash.
Right. The only hurdle that you will have to sort of jump through is this. If you were sort of to come in to the office today and say, I want to apply for Mainecare, and if you were to say to me, I have no income, I have no assets, and I have no expenses, you could expect an interviewer like myself to say, how are you paying your bills? You're not homeless, you have an address. How are you paying your bills? And what I would hope you would say would be, I'm receiving some money from my family members who are helping me pay my bills right now, but I'm expected to repay that loan.
Oh, so I have to repay them? I have to pay them back for all of the stuff they're giving me? I have to declare that?
To the Department of Health and Human Services?
Yeah.
No, you won't.
No, I don't have to.
No.
Okay.
If you ever got sick, and if you had Mainecare, if you ever got sick, and if you had to repay, you would never have to repay the loan. Okay, or let me say that again. If you had Mainecare, and if you were ill, and you incurred some doctor bills, you would never have to repay the doctor bills to Mainecare or through Mainecare in any way. What I'm sort of doing is I'm saying a good interviewer would say to you, how are you paying your expenses? You're not homeless, how are you paying your expenses? And you're going to have to say something.
Right, well,
So,
I've told you.
Yeah, so I would expect that you would say, my family members give me money to pay my bills, and I'm expected to repay them when I'm working.
Oh, okay.
So it would be something like that.
Okay.
So that's how money could go into an account that you're using
Okay.
on a monthly or quarterly
Now,
basis.
if I use the money that they put in the account for me for bills and whatnot, I don't have to declare that. That's all part of they're paying my bills,
Right.
even though it's going through the account. Now, is the state of Maine concerned about where they're getting their money from, or does it matter? Can I just say that's my family? They're not worried about their paperwork.
This case is all about you.
Okay.
And the answer is no. The answer is we don't care, and we're not going to look it up, and we're not going to go after it. We don't. How do I want to say this? Yeah, we don't care,
Okay.
and we don't search that.
Good. They're very, ever since their business went under, it's all strictly under the table, the work they do now. If I,
Again, it's a church to
yeah,
church.
right. Well, if I don't declare any of that, and I change my bank account, take my name off the bank account as you suggested, then the government's not to know. I mean,
Correct. We wouldn't know. Nobody knows. Yeah. And it's not for us to know, and it's not for us to go out and search either.
I'll fill the rest of this out.
Yeah. The only other thing that I think to tell you, because I think it's important for you to know this, is I want to sort of talk to you about, like, sometimes what verifications the Department of Health and Human Services asks for.
Okay.
So in certain circumstances, and like I know I have a case that's sort of similar to this, like what we're talking about, and there is an individual that I know that receives a sum of money from her mom on a regular basis, and that sum of money is what she's using to pay her bills. And so from time to time, I ask her to get a letter from her mom verifying that she is giving a personal loan to this individual on a regular basis, and this individual will be, it is expected that this individual will pay her back. So it's sort of like a loan with an intent to pay it back. And that's how I verify that income.
So as long as I say I intend to pay them back, then I'm all set. Even though I have no intention of paying them back, and they wouldn't want any money back anyway.
Correct.
Okay.
And mom and dad may be required to simply send this note saying, we give Sean $5,000 per month with an intent that he will repay us someday. So
Good song.
that type of thing. And then in addition, the only other thing that I could think of that could be sort of a flag that the Department of Health and Human Services may contact you someday or may not. And it could be not immediately, it could even be years from now, is, okay, so let me just ask you this question, because maybe it will never be a flag. If the account that you currently have a name on is an account that is, okay, so I'm just talking about the savings or the checking account that exists right now and your name is on it.
Shared checking.
Yeah, your name is on it and mom and dad's name is on it. And it has, let's just say it has $1 million in it. Okay, let's just say. If mom and dad file income taxes in the United States, and if mom and dad file income taxes in the United States, and if somehow your name is listed not on the tax return, but on this asset, and it's listed on the asset in, say, 2010 and in 2011, and we're into the second month of 2011, this is February of 2011, so it would be listed on, and then suddenly it comes off in 2011, then you could expect in maybe 2012 or maybe 2013, it could get reported to us that at one time you were affiliated with this asset, that you're not any longer, and we're going to ask you for verification about why you are not affiliated with that asset any longer.
And I'll just say, well, my parents kicked me off the account, and then...
Well, it's just something you'd have to verify. You don't even have to say they kicked me off. You could just say, I was removed from that account in February of 2011. We're going to say, prove it. Okay, so you'd have to get a bank document that states
Okay, well, yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, my intention is to do as you suggest and have my own separate account that they can put little funds in.
Yeah. So again, that's only if taxes are filed, and this is part of a tax return in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, then we're never going to know. Okay, but if it is, then eventually, and it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 years from now, it will sort of come up as a flag. We'll send you a letter and say, back in 2011, you have this asset.
Well, they have the asset.
Yeah, well...
I'm not worried about them declaring it, though.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. They're not going to declare it.
Yeah, if your name is on that asset, then it's going to be part of your assets, too. So
my father has the same name as well. I don't know if that will complicate things.
I'm just saying.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So I've got the flags down, but I'll make sure everything is good before I come back.
Okay.
And you've been great.
Okay. Well, you're very welcome.
I don't want to keep everybody else waiting. Jesus, I was out there an hour and a half.
We get them one person at a time. Okay. And well, good luck to you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Another time to apply.
Yeah, give me probably next week. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll have things sorted out.
Very good.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Room 114.
Thank you.